All right, welcome back. We are the Unreal Engine Workshop in winter 2026 at Georgian. And where last we left off, we were loading up our Unreal Engine project. And now, if you go back to it, you should see something that looks like this, right? So let me explain parts of this stuff. I have it in the PowerPoint slide deck as well. But I want to talk about some best practices so that we're good. This isn't exactly how I like to work, and I have to talk about this a little bit. So let's talk about the different windows here. So first of all, there is the viewport, this part right here, right? The viewport is where we do all of our work, where we do construction, where we do testing, and all that kind of stuff. That's what happens here in this big blue area. This is the viewport, okay? On the right, you can see on the top right corner, there is the world outliner. That's what this is. Think about all of your assets that you've placed in the world. They're all listed here. Okay, that's what they are. A lot of times, you know, I like to think about it from a technical perspective. So I'm going to give you the technical word for this. This is a scene graph. Okay, so the scene graph itself has all the different aspects. Every asset that you have here on the right-hand side is, again, all the assets. They're also put into these folders. You can allocate and organize the way you like. On the bottom, you'll see a details tab.
Where's this tab?
Oh, you didn't start yet?
No, I missed that.
Okay, so let's come back out. So you're going to have to shut down.
Oh,
Yeah, so you start it off by listing blank, simply, which is fine.
yeah.
Yeah, so start it again. So it's from that launcher. Yeah, so if you go to library, and if you click on launch, that should run to launch. Okay. And also, stuff like that. It's okay.
So click on games, and
Where you want to go to is
so I would change the locations. Click on that line.
30%.
And this is good.
My project.
Sorry about that. This dead, just gonna have to wait.
Okay, it's going to take some time. Well, actually, because you've already launched the project, you'll won't launch very slow at all.
Okay.
So yeah, going back to this then, what you have is the outliner, and on the bottom of the outliner, you have this area called details. So this is context sensitive. So if you click on anything in the outliner here, let's, as an example, if I click on some object like the player start, you can see now that there are details here for the player start. Everything from location, its rotation, and its scale. So everything in the game has a transform component, okay, that's built in. Actually, this is very similar to Unity. If you click on anything, you're going to see these, you know, this component, a transform. So the transform is made up of sub-components or vectors: location, rotation, and scale, right? Location is in centimeters. That's what we work in Unreal Engine, centimeters, right? Rotation is in degrees, and scale, it's just a value, a floating point value, a real number that allows us to scale. You can scale individual axes. So where it says red, this red axis here, or green or blue, this is the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. Okay, just a very high level. So that is your outliner and details and your viewport. At the top, what you have is your toolbar, and you have also a menu bar at the top as well. The menu bar hides a lot of the functionality of Unreal Engine. We're going to get to some of that. At the bottom, you have this content drawer, right? I don't know if you see it way at the bottom. I don't like it popping up, and then when I click onto it, it goes away. I don't like that too much. So what I like to do is lock the content drawer. So the way to do that is if you click on the content drawer, and on the right, you can see that it says dock and layout. Let's do that. Let's dock and layout. Again, what I did was, if you see the content drawer like this, you kind of pull it up, and I click dock and layout. And then what happens is, if I click away from it again, you're going to see that the content drawer comes in here. It becomes the content browser. So the content browser is where all of our assets are. This is where you're going to see everything from images, textures. I'm going to talk about textures. So again, I'm going to assume that you don't know what I'm saying. Textures for game programming are just images, so usually PNG files, JPEGs, that kind of stuff. That's what textures are. Textures are the things that we apply to objects so that they look a certain way. So you can see here we have a lot of textures. But if I look at the content drawer itself, just content itself, that's what we're going to be seeing. I'm just going to reset my filters for a second, because I want you to see the same thing that I see. So you should see this. Okay? So now you have three windows, or I don't know, three different parts, if you will. So you have the bottom, you know, kind of the top and the bottom. Now, there are some people who don't like this layout because it does eat up your screen real estate, especially if you have a small monitor or if you're working on a laptop. This layout may not work for you because, again, I've got this bottom part, I've got the side panel. You can arrange the layout any way you like. Your workspace is modifiable, so it works nicely for you. I'm going to keep it this way because that's how you're going to see all the tutorials online, if you actually look at online tutorials at all. Yeah?
Is this interface still the same as, like, can you do dual monitor, so you can set up just the one gaming interface there, and then you can have all your other windows?
You could.
Okay.
But I honestly don't do it, even though I have three monitors at home, right? And the reason for this is because, remember I was telling you about like how Unreal is a real pig when it comes to installation? It's also a pig when it comes to performance, right? So the more monitors I have, then what happens is it utilizes my video card like a bunch of different times, and I find performance is slow, even slower, right? So could you? Yes. Do I recommend it? No. I'd rather have like Blender on one monitor and Unreal on the other one. That might make more sense, you know, than splitting it up. You'll see, you'll get used to it. I think when it comes to Unreal Engine and any game engine itself, you get used to it by doing. Just keep doing it, and then it'll become part of your thing. So we did the first modification we did was we docked this in the layout. This is what I recommend. Second modification, okay? Whenever we open up a window, at the top left corner, you're going to see this edit menu up here, way up at the top here. Let's go to that menu, okay? Second modification. I want you to go down to where it says Editor Preferences. So again, in the Edit menu, go down to the Editor Preferences section. It'll pull up this other window that looks like this. It might even pull it off somewhere else, like down here somewhere, okay? That's okay. What I want you to do is I want you can drag these windows anywhere you want, all right? I want to drag this window right up to the tab at the top, right? The Editor window. And notice there's an area here when you open the editor that says Asset Editor Open Location. Asset Editor Open Location. I want you, instead of using default, I want you to choose Main Window. Why? Because otherwise, every single time we open up an asset, it's going to open up its own window. And that's going to be, talk about performance. Could you do that? Like put a window aside? You could always do that. You can always take a tab, rip it off, and put it on one monitor or the other one. That I do sometimes. But in terms of like the actual panels that we saw earlier, the details panel and the outliner, no, I don't do that. Also, I have to warn you guys about something else. Blender, when you use Blender, if you're using modeling, right, as an example, crashes sometimes, right? So does Unreal, which means if you monkey around with Windows, right, sometimes what happens is even if you move the Blender interface from one window to the other, your Unreal interface, it will crash.
So you can't save your workspace?
Well, you can, but it just, there's some limitations on what you can do. Unreal Engine, again, is made for single monitor, mostly, okay? You can make it work. I've done it before. Also, notice the active theme is dark. If you don't like the dark theme, you can download your own. There's lots of themes you can download. You can customize your themes in the editor and all that kind of stuff here. I'm not going to go into all that, but that is one thing we want to change is just the asset open location will be main window. We're going to do this several times today as we open up different projects, okay? We can close this window off now. If you want to click on the X next to the tab, we don't need it anymore. So that's the second modification I want to talk about when it comes to stuff we're using. Okay, so without further ado, what I want you to do now is let's play the game. So what we're going to do is there's this little play button at the top. Let's just click it and we can play the game. If you click into the viewport, you can see that your mouse moves around the camera. It kind of orbits around the character. That's what it allows you to do. And we use the WASD keys to move forward, back, left, and right. So if you're not familiar with WASD, we're going to use that. for a lot of things. So W will move the character forward. You can see there's an animation built into the character. A will move the character left, and D will move the character right. And if you move the camera and do that, you can navigate pretty much anywhere in the level with your character. If you press the space bar, you can jump, right? And these blue blocks, you can actually push. They're actually physics enabled, so you can push these blocks around and they respond to physics. There you go. So that is your starter little level. The character you see here, Quinn, that's her name, right, is a very actually sophisticated character they put together for you, all right, as an example. So Quinn has interesting features that I want to talk about, right? So she's got a special blueprint, right, that uses, that basically deals with her animation. So that's one thing that she does, a separate blueprint just for that. And she also uses something called inverse kinematics for her feet. Let's take a look. So her feet don't hang off the little ramp here, right? One foot is down and the other one is up. And that is something that they've added in Unreal Engine. If I kind of move her forward a little bit, you can see that there's a place where she actually puts 1 foot up and 1 foot down, and that's built in to her character, which is really cool. It makes it so that if you make other characters based on Quinn, they'll also have the inverse kinematics built in, right? As long as you use the same skeleton. So, which is really cool. So they've given you this thing. It's a real demo character, and we're going to use Quinn today when we make our project. Our third project we're going to work on, because it'll give us some options when it comes to kind of moving around the level. Creating our own movement, we can do it, but it's quite involved, and it probably take up a lot of our time. All right, so that is Quinn, and this is our level. Now, to get out of this, press escape, right? And then you can stop the game. So anytime you want to stop the game in the editor, escape is your friend, all right? Play and escape. We're going to do that over and over again. When we talk about testing, I'm going to say compile, save, and test. When I say test, which means try it in the game, right? We always want to try stuff in the game because even though it might work in blueprints, it looks okay, and then we try it in the game, it doesn't work, right? So we need to test all the time. So that is your interface for the most part. Any questions around this?
Sorry, just maybe it's too early, but does Mixamo work with Unreal?
Mixamo absolutely works with Unreal. So the way it would work is, so for those people who don't know what Mixamo is, if I go to Mixamo.com, you can go there too if you like, right? Mixamo is owned by Adobe. So what you need is an Adobe login for this. So I have one here. I'm just log in for you so I can show you.
They all know.
What was that?
I said they all have me.
Awesome. So then now you have Mixamo, and you can see that there's several characters here. And here I'm looking at Ybot just by chance. But Mixamo is a great place to get assets. Now, there's a problem with Mixamo when it comes to inverse kinematics, which I just talked about. It doesn't give you a root bone. Without a root bone, you can't do root motion. So you have to, there's a bit of a fix. You have to download and stuff like that, but Mixamo does mostly everything else. So, I mean, it won't allow you to do root motion, but it will allow you to do all the stuff. And Mixamo is a free, kind of mocap asset library that they've provided to us. So that's motion capture. You can pick from several characters in Mixamo if you go there. And so a good example would be, I don't know, I'm going to pick like Exo Gray. And then once you've got this character, it's going to be in T-pose. This is kind of our standard starting pose. Also A pose. So there's two poses we talk about when we create organic characters, T-pose and A pose. And those poses are how we model our character. And after that, we add an armature, some kind of bones inside the character. And each bone, it basically what it does is it changes the pixels or the vertices that are associated with it. So if there's a bone here, it'll modify all the pixels and vertices around this, right? And there's a bone over here, it'll modify those vertices, right? So if I move this bone, those vertices also move. Also part of kinematics, inverse kinematics, actually, right?
Jenny, we don't have access to it with a company or school account.
What, Mixamo? It won't allow you to access? Oh, because you have no web access?
It just says company or school accounts are not supported. We don't pay for it, maybe?
It's free.
Oh.
So if you use your own account, no problem.
It does say continue with a personal account to access the service.
Mixamo is really great because It's a bunch of free assets from Adobe. They kind of add to it here and there, but it hasn't been updated for a while in terms of things they've added. But what's great is you can test out different animations. So if I want to test out this capoeira animation, you can see I can apply it to this character, right? And it doesn't matter, any of these animations you can try out. And these are mocap animations, so that means that they've been in a motion capture studio, and then that's how they built these. Okay, so that's how it works. Then what you can do is, after you've got the animation, if this actually works, I don't know why. Here we go. Let's do this one. Here, let's do sitting. Yeah, this one. All right. He's heading a soccer ball. You can download them. You can download all these things, right? And then once you've downloaded them, you can just drag and drop it into Unreal Engine and use them. But like I said, in order for you to make it all work with Quinn's layout, because Quinn is your almost like your dummy, as an example, right? We call Quinn a mannequin. A lot of times that's what they use, and that's the words they use for Unreal Engine. Then if you want to use it, you have to retarget all of her animations with this set of bones, right? So there is a retargeting system we can use. If we have time later, maybe we'll do it. But it is possible, very possible, to use Mixamo. All right, back to what we were doing though. I'll minify this for now. So we're here, and that's what this has done. This is the first project we worked on, is this 3D third-person perspective project. If I look back at the templates that we have, as an example. So if I go back to our templates, notice that there's a bunch of other ones, right? So we have a blank project, we have a first-person project, we have a top-down project, and so on. And in versions 5.6 and beyond, these projects have actually been improved a lot, right? So if you actually look at the new templates if you downloaded Unreal Engine now at home, your actual template would be nicer and better than this one, okay? So, and they're continuously adding to it. One thing that doesn't exist for us is a 2D project out of the box. So there is no 2D project built in for Unreal Engine. We could create one, and you can make any templates you want. That's also something you could do if you investigate how to do that. I can make a bunch of templates for myself, right? So if you had a 2D project you wanted to create, and you wanted to load up for all your students, as an example, or a 3D project, you can do that, develop it, save it, and then share it with your students, and then they would have the same start like you. The other thing that doesn't exist is a web-enabled project. You can't. It's not a target for Unreal Engine. Unity has a target for web. If I want to build a Unity game and then choose the web as a platform, I can do that. I can't do that for Unreal. Unreal abandoned that in version 4.27, right? So they don't do web, and that's why, like I said earlier, and Wallace, kind of said it too. Unity is simpler in some ways, and it actually has it kind of talks to all the platforms. It's really great for serious games. Unreal is really great for 3D games, 3D experiences, lighting, and it really looks great. So we just went through this. We just went through all the major parts. The viewport, we talked about the world outliner, we talked about the details panel, we talked about the content browser, right? We did talk about the toolbar a little bit. I'm going to go back to that in a second. And the other thing we did was we used the player controls to make things go, right? And that's the first part. I want to go back to that, toolbar. There's other things we can do here, and this is where I want you guys to explore today, right? A little bit now for the next half an hour or so, and just to get you guys warmed up. So on the toolbar, notice that there is a selection mode. That's where we are right now, where I can select objects. So if you want to kind of navigate in the space, notice if I right-click inside of this in the viewport, let's try this together. For those people who've never done it, I can right-click, and if I hold the right-click, my right mouse button down, I can kind of change my camera's target. There's almost like a virtual camera that exists in the game that you can't see. And I can kind of move through the game with my WASD keys, just like I did with the character, except I can fly way in the sky. And I can kind of look down at my game, and I can fly way down inside my game and through it, right? So you can try it out. I want you guys to navigate through just like this. So use your fly-through controls, that's what they are, by just holding the right mouse button down and using your WASD keys to move at the same time, right? Other things to note, there are other keys you can use. The E key moves you up, E key, right? So it actually just moves you straight up. Q key moves you down, right? So that's what it does. So again, by holding your right mouse button, you can kind of navigate around the world. So this is the first thing you need to know how to do. Let's navigate a little bit while you're doing that. You good?
Yeah. How do you modify like the sheet?
Oh, you're going ahead, right? We'll do that in a second. So that's the first thing. We learn, first of all, to work in the viewport, right? Is everyone able to do that? Can everyone fly through? Flying through the viewport, no? You're doing something weird? Boss, gonna
Oh, you're still in the game mode. Stop the
Yeah.
game mode. So
escape. Escape key. Yeah.
I press your E. E in it.
So again, if you right click in the viewport, so if you right click in the viewport, then you can, if you hold the right mouse button down, and then if you use your WASD keys, you can fly through. All right, so that is selection mode and flying through with selection mode. You can see I can fly through and all that kind of stuff. Here's another thing I can do. I can select an object while the game is not playing. I can select an object here in the game, like for example, this blue cube, right? Any one of these blue cubes. Let's take this one here as an example. I want to get this blue cube. Let's left click to select it, right? When I left click and select an object in Unreal Engine, notice that there is this gizmo that comes up, right? And it looks like these three arms. Those three arms are the axis arms, right, that allow us to transform an object in three-dimensional space, right? By default, we are selecting and moving an object in 3D space by clicking on it for the first time. Inside the viewport, there are other controls up here, if you notice, on the top right corner, right? There is this translate object. There's a rotation control. There is also the scale objects control. So again, it's move, rotate, and scale right here at the top. Are you with me? Right here. You can also do it with shortcut keys. So the W key is the one we can switch to. If I click W, then it switches me to selection and location changing. If I press the E key, we can now rotate. And if I press the R key, you can scale. Okay, that's what you were asking for. If I want to change the size of the object, I can scale it with the R key. So if I did this, I can choose one of these blocks. These are arms. This is kind of what the scaling looks like. And I can scale an object as large or small as I want. Okay?
But if you scale it, will not mess up. Like let's say you had a castle wall, for example, and you have like little divots at the top. If
Yeah.
you scale it, that should not stretch it.
It will stretch it. Yeah, it will. But this is a way of changing. If you want to actually modify an object here, like you do in Blender, it's not the same. Blender, that's why we need, like I said, it's nice to have a dedicated modeling program like Blender or Maya or 3ds Max or whatever, and then you bring it into Unreal. But I'm going to show you some tools today that you can do some stuff in Unreal Engine as well. All right, so again, so W allows me to move. So if I take one of the arms, the blue arm allows me to left click and drag an object in three-dimensional space in the Z-axis only. That's the blue arm, right? The green arm allows me, and again, if you zoom in here a little bit, if I just kind of scroll in, you can see the green arm allows me to move things across the Y-axis, and the red arm, if I click the red arm, it allows me to move or manipulate things across the X-axis. So again, red is X, green is Y, blue is Z, okay? So I want you guys to spend some time, if you haven't done this before, especially for the new people, spend some time manipulating objects, move them around the screen. Don't worry about messing up your template. Don't worry about that. Just do it. This is your sandbox, your playground, right? And we can always build it again. We can always make another project. There's no risk here at all. And actually, I encourage this with you and your students. Let them play and break the scene. It's totally okay, all right? Because unless they save the scene, nothing's changed. Okay, we can actually reload the scene up again, and then everything is back to normal. Okay, once they save the scene, though, yeah, bad things will happen. They'll have to reload the project or whatever if they want to get that scene back. So please play around. I'm just going to stop recording, and I want to go around. I want to give you guys some time, right? But I want to also present a challenge to you. Here's your challenge. All right. There's a way of duplicating objects as well. Okay. So notice I have this blue cube. The blue cubes inside the level, right? If you notice, these blue cubes, you can modify them to your heart's content. If I was to press play now, when I made this cube kind of, I translated it above the ground. If I press play, because it's physics enabled, it will drop, okay? That's one thing that'll happen, right? So you notice that the blue cube, I kind of made it bigger. I changed the size of it, but when I put it up, above the ground, it fell because it's physics enabled. These other objects here are not. So if I kind of escape out of here, you can see that there are other objects in here that are not physics enabled. These are static objects here, all right? Now I want to look inside of the content browser, just 1 second. In the content browser, if you go to level prototyping, this folder right here, and inside of there, if you look at meshes, double click on meshes, you'll see that there's a bunch of meshes here, right? So again, in the content browser, all I've done is I brought this up, and if you look inside of the level prototyping meshes folder, you'll see that there are several objects. One of them is this cube that is SM_cube, this one. You can just drag and drop objects from your content browser into the scene like this. If I just take the cube and I just drag it in, you can see that I can drag in as many copies of this cube as I want, okay, like this, just by dragging and dropping, okay? So where this is really great is it allows you to build some stuff. So here's what I want you to do with using cubes, all right? Don't save your level. If using cubes, I want you to build whatever you want. You can scale them, size them, move them around the level. You can even delete things in the level. It doesn't matter. For example, if you don't want to have these ramps and stuff here, let's get rid of them. So I want you to just get rid of this stuff here. You can just click delete if you want to. And you can get rid of stuff and make this a level where you play around. I want you to build whatever you want to build, but try and build a wall. Try and build these, these cubes up, kind of move them in a wall. One thing to note is that everything you move around in the level when you're experimenting, right, they're on a grid, right? So if you actually move this and use the control arms to move things around, notice they snap to the grid. They're snapping every 10 units. This is the snapping up here. You can see up here at the top, there's snapping. You can turn snapping on and off by clicking the blue object, the blue button here, or you can change the amount you want to snap here in here, all right? Same thing with rotation and scaling. You can snap a scale or snap to a rotation. If I want to move things, if I want to snap to 45-degree rotations, and if I switch to rotations instead of I want to rotate something instead, so I want to click on the rotate button and rotate it. It'll snap at 45 degrees now because I've snapped that rotation, right? Or I can just change this back to what it was before, 5 degrees, right? It's up to you. So here's your challenge. While I'm going to stop recording. I want you to build whatever. Build a wall, build a house, build whatever you can. Size those cubes the way you want. Play around with the scale tool. And we'll come around and Wallace and I will help you do this. Try and build whatever you want, right, with it. But I want you to play with the environment. This is the first thing we show all beginners how to do, because without this, manipulating and using Unreal becomes very difficult. I'm going to stop recording now.